And so now when I come through, I'm drawing, thinking of the scapula coming up, hitting over the surface, and go behind the ear. And the trapezius muscles going back into this is the same thing. This is pulling, going back into the surface. So I'm working around over surface. I'm taking and thinking now, the scapula comes down, we can start to feel the joint coming through. And I want to focus, I'm jumping down to drawing the elbow. And they have an elbow just like we do. Coming through. The muscles are coming down, full. So in this case, I would also add a cast shadow from the ear to help to show the volume. Right. And I feel the pulling up of the rib cage here. I'll take, as we pull back here, now we can feel the forms. See, I've used the line going around the form to take and show the way the muscles are pulling. We can feel behind, push it down. So as I'm doing this drawing, very little of this is taking and responding to the way the actual light happens to be falling on the elephant. And I'm pulling down, you feel the spine is inside, and the spine is going to come up and rises up. So I'm going to give that a side. And then I'm constantly going over the volume. So here I'm taking and doing exactly what I did with the wash on the coyote. I'm using the tone to go around over the surface to take and show volume. So I'm just pushing, going over the surface. Now, to come back here, I'm going to continue this volume through. Now, this leg is actually coming forward and pulling into here, standing. So what I want to do is to take and get a sense of where we're pulling, where the pelvis is. We can feel the fullness of the muscles coming down, belly pushing up against it. We have a knee. You feel the knee, the joint coming through. I want to feel the pelvis pushing down. We can see the bone here is actually, we got the spine going behind and we're pulling out in front there with the pelvis. So as I'm coming down, going over that surface, and I can take in, the tail is actually falling straight down, but I'm going to give it a little more life. I'm going to take and pull it out a bit, give it a little bit more flow down. I want to, coming through now, we can feel the fullness, saggy bit of the muscles coming down through, going over the surface. Now, if I leave the tone there that I have, and I come underneath and start to adding a sense of the bottom here, this almost feels like reflected light, but I need to take in, now I'm using, notice that as the strokes I'm putting down, they're one right next to the other. It's not scribbling. So you need to take in, I can go over whole sections of, even, let's just do this for example now. I've got these lines going through. Now if I take and use the pencil going down here, you don't really lose the lines that I put down. All I've done is actually added a tone over the surface. So, and for instance, the same thing apply. Let's just carry the leg a little bit farther, and then we'll take and do the same thing. Come down to the ankle, feel through, and then we come down into the foot. To look at the toes, coming through. Now, I can drop this whole thing in tone, but it has to be a very controlled, simple thing. And I'm going to take the back leg, coming forward, the knee is bent. And again, I keep mentioning this now. Notice how all of those lines that I started out with to capture the gesture, pretty much in terms of your conscious looking, seeing them, you don't really see them anymore. They have receded. A little bit of the waist. I feel the spine is. You get the foreleg here now. Coming across again. Wrist down, planting the foot down. And I will drop this all in tone, and the back leg is essentially hidden behind here. Now, I come into the trunk. I would take and I want to feel the flow. It's feeling the flow. Notice that when I'm doing that, it's my arm that's giving the motion. It's very little here. When I'm working with a broad pencil technique like this, I'm using the fingers. But even here, you can see that the arm is the dominant thing that makes the movement. So as I come down, and I'll pull around, and picking up some hay. I guess it's hay. And we can indicate a little bit of the character of the trunk, and you can feel there's a little bit of the ear on the opposite side. Okay, let's try another angle with this now. Okay, now this is taking in the elephant going in the opposite direction. I want to take and give you another way of approaching the drawing. This is a simple watercolor made from an Altoid. One of my students did this for me and uses Sculpey to take and make the points. And so I carry this around in my pocket all the time. So where I can take and then working with the water brush. Now in doing this, I want to take and start out very light. And I don't use very much of a wash, but I notice that what I'm going to do is exactly the same thing. I'm taking and focusing very much just on the gesture, the volumes. So I'm going over the surface. And I'll come back into this with the pen again. But you can see, or maybe I'll carry it farther with the brush. But you can see this, thinking of the rear end, and it's going in space, going through, around it. So we're focusing on three-dimensional volume and the gesture. So we have a series of overlapping planes in space. So through, indicating a large ear already. But again, I'm very loose with this. I don't allow yourself to get too fussy. So coming through, still the same elephant. It's quite young. I want to feel the trunk coming down, feel the legs coming back. And we're dealing with a bit of perspective. In that case, what I generally will do is, for myself, is to indicate the plane in space that you're working in. so that you can take and build within the restrictions that you've got. Through. Now, again, I'm thinking coming through the pelvis. In fact, in this view, we actually get a good shot of the pelvis. We can see that it's very broad, open, and we can feel the spine coming down. Tail, and again, I'm going to pull the tail out rather than have it just hanging down. I'm setting the figure in space. It's got one leg slightly behind. Coming through. Going over. And now pull. Again, go over. The other leg is slightly forward. Okay, that gets us started with the thing. Now, as I go back into this, I will take and I can use a little bit darker, and I'm going to do the same thing now. I'm just building the form up, but I'm working with structure. I want to feel the corners of the form. So now I'm going over, so I'm doing pretty much the same thing I was doing with the pencil and with the pen, except here now I have the opportunity. I can use the wash to take and create a shadow side. I can come through and thinking of the way the spine is coming down through, tail coming out, and progressively you take and I get darker as the drawing or the build it up. Right over the surface, I'm using a sort of a crosshatch type of approach. You even get the cast shadow from the tail here. And here with the elephants, like rhinos and hippos, you can really feel the skin pulling over and around the form. So taking in and looking joints, feel the pull, so I can drop stuff in. I want to feel the fullness of the whole thing. Now here in this case, I'm going to cheat a little bit and move the light a little bit over to take and give more of a sense of the 3D, and gives us a little bit rounder form. Through. And again, pulling, feeling the volume, feel the pull. I want to get in and draw the, actually thinking of the wrinkles. You're thinking of the knee coming down to the ankles, going over.